Strategy games can be a lot of fun, but finding a good free one isn't always easy. So I picked a collection of free strategy games and spent about 2 hours playing each one to see what they had to offer. After trying them, I ranked every game into tiers based on my own experience. Let's get into it. Warzone 2100 is a real-time strategy game set after a nuclear disaster, where survivors search for lost technology while rebuilding their strength. Instead of heavy resource management, it relies on oil, deep research, custom unit design, and battles across a fully 3D battlefield. Once I started building my base, I noticed I could spend more attention on research and creating different vehicles instead of worrying about collecting endless resources. I tried mixing weapons, chassis, and movement types to see what worked best, and experimenting with different designs became my favorite part. Carrying experienced units between missions also made every battle matter because I wanted to keep them alive. The camera controls felt smooth, and the battlefield looked great, although some units occasionally struggled to reach the exact location I wanted. The opening missions felt repetitive, but later objectives and stronger technology made the battles much more interesting. I would easily place this in the excellent tier. 0K builds its strategy around factories instead of fixed factions, giving players the freedom to combine armies while using a nearly flat tech tree. It also includes a large campaign, co-op, multiplayer, and plenty of unique units. Once I understood how factories worked, building armies became much more interesting because I wasn't locked into a single playstyle. I spent time trying different unit combinations, and almost every battle encouraged me to adjust my approach instead of repeating the same strategy. The automated controls also help reduce busy work, so I could pay more attention to positioning and planning attacks. There was a lot to learn at first, and the interface felt overwhelming until I became familiar with it. Even so, every match introduced another mechanic worth experimenting with, making it easy to stay engaged. This easily finds its place in the excellent tier. Planet S is a space strategy game where players build colonies across procedurally generated planets, manage production chains, research new technologies, and connect worlds through trade routes. Every planet offers different resources, encouraging expansion while leaving room to solve problems through diplomacy or military strength. Once I established my first colony, I quickly realized that one planet couldn't provide everything I needed, so I started planning where to expand next. Setting up supply routes between worlds was satisfying because every new resource unlocked more ways to grow my economy. I also liked watching my settlements slowly become more productive as I balanced population needs with resource production. The research system was easy enough to understand, although I occasionally paused to figure out where certain mechanics were hidden because the game didn't explain everything clearly. Even with that learning curve, building a small network of colonies kept me interested from beginning to end. I'd leave this one in the good tier. Crusader Kings II is a grand strategy game set during the Middle Ages where players guide a ruling dynasty through diplomacy, warfare, politics, marriages, and succession. Instead of chasing a fixed ending, every decision shapes relationships, territories, and the future of the family across generations. Once I started learning the different menus, I realized that keeping people loyal was just as important as building an army. I spent more time arranging marriages, checking character opinions, and managing my council than actually fighting wars. Every choice seemed to create another problem or opportunity, which kept me paying attention even when nothing dramatic was happening. I did find the amount of information overwhelming at first, and I occasionally stopped just to understand what certain options actually did. Even with that steep learning curve, I could already see why so many players spend countless hours with it because every decision felt like it mattered. This belongs in the masterpiece tier without hesitation. SOVL Fantasy Warfare is a turn-based fantasy strategy game inspired by classic rank-and-flank tabletop battles, where players command armies, position units, cast spells, and win through careful planning instead of fast reactions. A campaign mode gradually expands your forces, while multiplayer offers tactical battles against other players. I spent my first few matches learning how much activation order affected every turn, because moving one unit too early could leave another completely exposed. Lining up charges and watching formations come together was surprisingly satisfying once I understood the basics. I also liked slowly growing my army through the campaign since each new unit made future battles more interesting. The lack of a proper tutorial meant I occasionally had to figure things out through trial and error, but the mechanics were straightforward enough that I kept improving with each battle. This comfortably fits into the Great tier. War Selection is a historical, real-time strategy game where civilizations grow from the Stone Age to the Industrial Age by gathering resources, expanding settlements, researching technologies, and fighting massive battles. Different civilization paths unlock unique units and buildings, while large multiplayer matches create constant pressure to survive and keep expanding. I spent my early time trying to balance the economy and military because falling behind in either one quickly became a problem. Choosing a civilization felt more important than I expected since it changed the options I had as the match progressed. I also enjoyed how unpredictable each game felt, with nearby opponents forcing me to adjust my plans instead of following the same strategy every time. There were a few rough edges and moments that felt unpolished, but the core gameplay kept pulling me into one more match as I learned new approaches. This easily earns a spot in the excellent tier. Loria is a classic fantasy real-time strategy game where players gather resources, build a base, recruit armies, and complete story-driven missions with hero units that gain experience and equipment. Veteran soldiers, side objectives, and traditional RTS mechanics give battles a familiar old-school style. After getting through the opening missions, I spent most of my time learning how to balance economy and army production without falling behind. Keeping my hero alive felt important because finding new items and abilities made each battle a little easier to handle. I also found myself paying closer attention to veteran units instead of replacing them whenever I could. The controls felt smooth right away, so I could focus on planning attacks rather than fighting the interface. I was still discovering new mechanics as I played, which left me curious to see what the later missions would introduce. I'd comfortably place this in the excellent tier. Vedelem the Golden Horde is a medieval strategy game where players gather resources, expand territory, construct defenses, recruit armies, and survive repeated enemy invasions before the final assault arrives. Every scenario revolves around balancing economy and military strength while preparing a castle strong enough to withstand increasingly dangerous attacks. While playing, I was busy trying to gather resources efficiently because expanding too quickly or too slowly immediately affected how prepared I was for the next wave. Building walls and training soldiers was satisfying, although I quickly realized that every resource had to be spent carefully, especially wood. I also liked that the controls were easy to understand, letting me focus on defending my settlement instead of learning complicated systems. Even after a few successful defenses, I still felt like I was figuring out the best way to approach each map, which made me want to jump into another scenario. I'd place this in the excellent tier. That wraps up my ranking after spending around 2 hours with each of these free strategy games. If there's another free strategy game I should try, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.